All right. Hey, everybody, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. It is Friday. It is 4 p.m. Pacific. It's 4:02 Pacific. Sorry, we're running a little late. But let's do some Pathfinder Friday today. As you might have seen in a blog that Thurston Hillman put out, he called it's the beginning of con season. Convention season is kind of upon us, and we know this more than anything because we're going to start going to skeleton crews at random days because everybody's going to be gone to different things. That also means that there's going to be a lot of organized play to jump into and have fun at a con that's hopefully near you that you can go to. So we thought, hey, let's explore this a little bit more and let people have a better idea of what they can expect with organized play and how they might be able to get involved with that. To do that, we decided to get the one and only John Compton, organized play lead developer here at Paizo. Thank you so much for joining us, buddy.
Great to be here.
Yes. So first off, because you were on the show a long time ago.
Long time ago.
Back when I only had two chairs. I didn't even have a curtain or anything. I think those are in the Twitch archives. You can find those somewhere. But it was a long time ago, and I thought, it's been enough time that we should probably start talking about this again, because I would imagine some of you folks in the audience there are going to be going to conventions coming up. I know we are, and so I want to talk about, first of all, I want to get into what makes this convention season, how that affects organized play, and then we can jump into how can people get into organized play and all of that sort of thing. First off, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
How busy have you been?
Increasingly. Every month is something new.
Everybody is so busy around here. If I don't get a show scheduled in time, then I'm at the point where I may not have a show because I don't have a backup. Like, everyone is so busy. So I'm glad that we can finally get stuff organized out a little bit. So first of all, what does convention season mean to organized play?
Yeah. So although there are conventions that happen year round, there are a whole bunch of them that happen in the summer months. Mm-hmm. So really from May until, really beginning of August, though it extends even a little bit further than that, is what we consider convention season. And so that's going to go all the way from PaizoCon for us, all the way through Gen Con, which is very end of July, very early August. And that is super big for us because that's when we tend to start new seasons or new years. So we wrap up one of our ongoing storylines and start the next one, and we always do it with a bang. So we release more scenarios, we release bigger scenarios and convention-focused scenarios, and we release a whole bunch of other special products to support organized play during those times. Because not only do we want to make sure that the seasons launch with a bang, but we want to support the shows that we're at as much as possible. So right. To make PaizoCon as cool as possible, give them something special. To make Gen Con as cool as possible, fill that Sagamore ballroom with people playing the newest stuff. That's really what we're going for.
So then, along with that, so let's look at, first of all, the scope of organized play. We've got Pathfinder Society. Mm-hmm. Obviously, those are going to be the Pathfinder fantasy settings that people know and love. We've got Starfinder Society, which is Starfinder setting, but kind of the same idea, but in the science fantasy realm that we've created for Starfinder. And then there's the Adventure Card Guild.
Adventure Card Guild, that's right.
Okay. So let's start with Pathfinder Society. That one came first, obviously. That's the first one that came out. What is the Pathfinder Society in game, and what is the Pathfinder Society in real life?
Okay, so the Pathfinder Society in game is an international organization of basically Indiana Joneses. You are combat archaeologists, you are explorers, you're sages. Ideally, you are documenting what you find, but honestly, it's an adventure role-playing game. So you kick in some doors, you stab some manticores, you move on with life, right. And hopefully you report your findings. In game, there's a thing called the Pathfinder Chronicles, which is basically the National Geographic magazine of the world, and so Pathfinder agents like you will periodically publish in there, and if you find something particularly spectacular, you'll be sort of front page content. So that's the way of highlighting your career, is to be in there. But until then, if you want to use your 7 intelligence barbarian just to hack apart a golem, that's totally cool as well.
Right.
So as far as what Pathfinder Society is out of game, it is a network of linking up players together to play one-shot games in a constantly rotating group, as you like. So normally you'd have a home game where you have a set group of players, and you're going to play like every week or every other week, something like that. You get to put in whatever home rules you want, and you're telling a single story. But if you take your character and you move somewhere else, to a different state, to a different country, across town, or try and join some other group, then your 9th level paladin means nothing in my first level game that I'm running, because I don't want your 9th level paladin in my first level game. You're going to wreck everything.
Like a bull at a china shop. Just running through.
Your play style, exactly. So, so basically, organized play is a way of saying, okay, cool, let's play these roughly 4 to 5 hour scenarios, at the end of which we'll gain a sheet that says, here's the gold you earned, here's the experience you earned, here's how your character advances, and you can take that credit to any table and say, oh, now your 9th level paladin is confirmed to be part of this campaign. You've been playing with the shared home rules that we use for the campaign, and you can just sit down and start playing a game just like that, especially at conventions.
Well, see, and that is kind of where it becomes super handy, is when you're playing an RPG, that's usually the barrier that I see, especially like on social media, is people are like, oh, I built another character, but I don't have a place to play it. And I'm always like, well, check out, the organized play, because that is a good place you can go. And especially at a convention, it's really difficult to find a group of folks that you can play with.
Yeah, and on top of that, it's one of those things where, like, for a home game, it's, okay, did we get the whole group together? Cool, we'll play. Did we not? Well, we'll just sort of punt things down the road and play again in the future.
Right.
But for organized play, you show up for whatever sessions you want. Almost all of our scenarios are standalone. We do a couple of 2 or 3 part arcs, but really it's, hey, did you show up for this one? Cool. And if you need to skip the next 3 weeks, that's also fine. Play at your own pace, whatever's comfortable. Do you want to play 10 scenarios in a single weekend at a convention? I've been there. Go ahead.
Yeah. Welcome to Gen Con.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the basic idea of what the Pathfinder Society is in real life and in game. Can I assume that it's roughly the same idea for Starfinder Society?
It really is. The one little difference in world is that the Starfinder Society, because it's so far in the future and there's this gap that has broken some of history, the Starfinder Society rediscovered bits of the Pathfinder Society, like historical lore, and said, well, that sounds cool, let's do that. So it's it's the equivalent of finding like a Roman manuscript and trying to make their their feasting and vomitorium society off of several paragraphs of text.
So I want to get something clear here really quick.
that
a lot of people may not know. But when John starts talking about vomitoriums and feasting areas and those kinds of things, John is an archaeologist. Like, you've gone and dug up these things. And I all of my knowledge comes from movies, so bear with me for a second.
Oh, no.
But you've affixed your hat, and you've sat down, and you've got a paintbrush, and you're brushing things away very gingerly. I'm sure it's been roped off with some bright pink plastic so that people don't walk over the site. At any given time, a wind could kick up, and you have to cover it with a tarp. I'm pretty sure I'm correct if movies have not lied to me at all. But you've actually gone out and dug on sites, or whatever you call them.
Yeah. So in brief, there have been on 2 different types of excavations. One of them is oftentimes referred to as the phase 3, which is the sort of like, wow, a whole building sort of thing, and look, a skeleton, things where you know that you have something that you are digging up. And that's very exciting. I love that. That was what I did in school for my academic short career. But then I did what's called cultural resource management, which is in the United States, it's hey, before you build in a place, dig a whole bunch of test pits to confirm you're not going to build a Walmart on top of a Native American burial mound sort of thing.
Right.
But unfortunately, that is more dig and hope you don't find anything. Otherwise, you're going to get an earful from the contractor, sort of stuff. So way less exciting, which is one of the reasons I got out of archaeology.
Yeah.
But it's less paintbrush and more trowel, which is a sharp instrument of death. And I've yet to see a Pathfinder Society scenario character use one of those as a legit weapon.
Can you do that? Is that...
Oh, yeah. There's actually a trait that allows you to use one of your professional tools as an improvised weapon with no penalty. So I don't know what you're waiting for.
Yeah, get on it. That'd be awesome. I'd love that.
Yeah.
Alenia is saying, all of my knowledge comes from movies. I'm the same, but I'm going to guess that archaeologists don't like those words.
Most archaeologists, not all of them, will roll their eyes a little bit if you say, like Indiana Jones, right?
I referenced the hat, but I was like, I'm not going to keep going with that.
No, hats are actually important.
Already.
Hats most archaeologists have. Whips, no.
Oh, well, that was all right.
I know. Where are your dreams now?
Gone, dead. Rolled a 1. Let's talk about this. So the other thing that I want to address, because there's some turmoil going on right now with the card game. Things are changing over.
Yeah.
Things are going to be a little bit different moving forward. Will Adventure Card Game, the AC Adventure Card Game Guild, is that what that's called?
Adventure Card Guild, yeah.
The Adventure Card Guild, the organized play for the Adventure Card Game. Will that continue with the new core set that's going to be coming out? How is that going to work?
Yeah, we're really excited to promote the new box set with the continuation of Adventure Card Guild. So typically what we do is we do a year-long season in which we run a full 6 adventures, roughly 30 playable scenarios, sometimes with promotional events. Pardon me. And we're looking to do something very, very similar shortly after the box set comes out. So we have the box coming out in, I believe it's May. And so we'll be releasing a few little scenarios to sort of tease the upcoming season. And then we're looking middle of the year to be starting our season on that.
Nice.
But we have more details coming up. Linda Zayas Palmer is already hard at work on that, and it's really been taking the lead on a lot of our Adventure Card Guild material.
Great. But rest assured, it's not going to get dropped out of organized play when this new format, I guess, is a good way to say it. At some point, we really should have Mike Selinker on the show to talk about the new card game because he would know more than any of us. So
yeah, and it's a wonder to behold. Linda's been looking at some of the cards, and they are really beautiful.
Yeah, there's a good blog post that has a few images, but it looks amazing. Charm Needle at PaizoCon, and feel free to put a link to PaizoCon in there because folks might want to learn how to get badges for PaizoCon 2019 because it's going to be a lot of fun. So with the new season that's coming, because, and maybe I'm wrong in this, but the Pathfinder Society and Starfinder Society run like a calendar year, and that's called a season? Is that how that works?
It's typically called a season. We're starting to use the term year a little bit more, just so that we're not jumping between years and seasons and terminology.
Oh, fair.
But by and large, yeah, it typically goes for Pathfinder Society from roughly August to the following August. And then for Starfinder Society, it's June to June. Because we launch our Starfinder Society New Year's at Origins in Columbus, Ohio. And we launch our new ones for Pathfinder Society at Gen Con in Indianapolis in August.
Okay. And how far, calendar-wise, how far apart are we talking with those? Origins is at the beginning of...
it's in mid-June.
Mid-June,
and then
okay.
Really early August, or in this case, late July.
That's late July.
For Gen Con. So it's only about 5 or 6 months, or 5 or 6 weeks apart.
Okay.
Much to our consternation.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I mentioned earlier that all of these things have more content than usual, and we release it earlier than usual to our GMs so that they can have it prepared to debut.
Right.
So it's a big crunch period that goes all the way back until usually very beginning of February, late January.
Oh, wow. Okay. So I want to get into the Gen Con experience a little bit more. But first, before we do that, because I kind of want to wrap up with the Gen Con experience, because
Sure.
it's pretty amazing. If I don't have, for some reason, if I don't have access to organized play, can I still get the adventures that people are playing? And just play those in my own home game if I wanted to, or
Absolutely.
How would that work?
If you're not doing organized play, a scenario is no different than a published module or adventure path volume. So you can play the adventure and stick to the story as much as you want. If you just want to pull a stat block from it or say steal an idea for your home game, you're welcome to do that. All the adventures, unlike our adventure paths and modules, which are for a specific level, our scenarios are for a 4 or 5 level range. And that's for flexibility when you're showing up to a game store and sitting down so you can have your 5th level character and 3rd level character play together.
Oh, that makes sense. That makes sense.
So so they have stat blocks for different sub-tiers within that level range.
Okay.
So yeah, you can borrow as much as you want from them. And the other important thing is, even if you don't have Pathfinder Society or Starfinder Society or play in general in your area physically, we have a really robust community online running things through virtual tabletops, play-by-post, and the like. So as long as you have an internet connection, you're in good shape.
Right. Okay. And if somebody wanted to buy those scenarios, how would they get a hold of those? Or Paizo.com, I assume?
That's Paizo.com. You'll find all of our Pathfinder Society and Starfinder Society scenarios for sale on there.
Okay.
And yeah, you just choose which ones you want and you're good to go. Also, if you're going to volunteer at one of the conventions, the convention organizers for our volunteer base will oftentimes be able to provide you with those scenarios that you're going to run. So as a way of basically saying, hey, look, you don't need to spend money to help us out and provide a good experience to people. They'll oftentimes be able to comp you something like a badge or something like that, as well as all the scenarios that you're running for it. And then you can take those and do whatever the heck you want with them.
Nice. And how many of those are they putting out a month? Is it like,
scenarios?
Yeah.
We're putting out 2 scenarios per month per campaign.
Wow.
So we have 2 Pathfinder Society, 2 Starfinder Society, and Gen Con Origins and all that throw things off even more.
Yeah. That's a lot of output. That is a lot of material.
That's a lot of material.
And roughly how long does one scenario take?
To play?
Yeah.
About 4 to 5 hours. We've been trying to get it close to 4 hours because I know that some people have really tight schedules, especially at some game stores that close earlier. So we have been trying to pull it back to 4 hours. But for some of our stories that we've been doing in Season 10, because we're trying to wrap up some really big plot threads in big ways,
right?
Yeah, I have been guilty of making several larger ones. If it
fair.
says like tier 7, 11, or higher, I'm probably involved and have been making it some monstrosity.
Time to buckle in because it's going to be a little while.
A little.
Okay, so that kind of covers the basic idea. There's still a little bit more to learn. And Charmed Needle, Sarah Marie is so nice. She's putting in some really, really important links if you want to learn more about the organized play programs that Paizo has. Hit up those links. It's a really, really, really good way to keep fresh content coming, whether you're doing it in organized play, whether you're just looking for something to play. I've found that organized play scenarios are a really good way to get people to try to play role-playing games in general. Just like, hey, well, give this a shot. I'm going to give a quick shout out to John because with Starfinder, there's Live Exploration Extreme, which, just the whole idea of that scenario, non-role-playing people are like, I'm interested in this. And that's, once you get them interested, once people start playing, most of them are hooked. And so
Starfinder Society has been so wonderful for that. Just from the let's take a popular modern day trope and turn that into sci-fi is a lot easier in Starfinder than it necessarily is in Pathfinder. And Thurston Hillman, who's been leading the development on a lot of the Starfinder Society material, is very much tapped into that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, now let's talk about Gen Con.
Yeah.
And the reason, and I'm going to start off by saying what I know, and then you can jump in and say, well, Dan, you're wrong here, because I'm going to be wrong about something, I'm sure. At Gen Con, we have the Sagamore Ballroom. It is a massive room. The Sagamore Ballroom is huge, and we fill that thing from wall to wall with organized play. I was able to go behind the scenes and go up to the little balcony room up there to grab a picture, and you look down, it is just amazing. It's got banners everywhere of all of the iconics. It's got Pathfinder, Starfinder. It is so branded and it's so fun. You walk in and you just feel great. It's like it's a gaming hall that's happening right now. And most of that's happening is Pathfinder Society, Starfinder Society. There is Adventure Card Guild going on. Lots of organized play that's happening all throughout that whole place. Mm-hmm. But before Gen Con last year, we used the studio here to do some voiceover recordings with different employees from Paizo, and I wasn't 100% sure what was going on, but I had a script that I think you and Linda and some other folks had written, and it was like, well, this is the script, and so we did some recording, and then we gave it to Ben at Sirenscape, who took that and kind of added some special effects and stuff like that. Then at Gen Con, I went in, and it was all like one game going on across most of the tables. I don't know if it was all, but most of the tables. There was audio going on. There was things crashing. There were people yelling. And it went from like game to game, mattered like at this table what happened, mattered over at this table, and all of that stuff. And I think it was like a special event. It was something like that, and it was so much fun. It was a blast. Hey, Ben, hey, welcome to the chat, pal. It was so much fun, and that's happening again, I assume.
Yeah. So
let's talk about this.
So those are multi-table interactive specials. We usually just call them specials.
Specials.
And so those are where instead of just playing a single table where you have a single GM and some players, and then your story is sort of self-encapsulated and doesn't affect anybody else, in this case, you're playing part of a much bigger adventure. And so in the case of what happened last year, this was a whole bunch of Pathfinders, in this case, roughly 1,000 of them, because we have 150 plus tables.
1,000?
Yeah. And you are going across this entire museum demiplane trying to keep it from collapsing. So each different team is plugging a different hole and trying to stop this Hausian cataclysm, as it's called, scenario by Mike Kimmel. And so every once in a while, what you have is one of those voices that you're referring to, one of our voiceovers, will come in and announce a new condition and say, Pathfinders, you did an amazing job. Now that you've closed up this terrible lake monster thing, this part is no longer being destroyed and the people nearby will help us. Everybody gets this, the people help us bonus. And good on you. And then we update the map and everybody cheers. And it's a nice moment because every time one of those tables completes that mission, then they report it in and it gets tabulated and it's part of the ongoing story. so if a whole bunch of people go to site B, but not many people go to site A, our announcement might be, and site B is looking amazing. Site A has caught fire and sunk into the sea.
So there are consequences.
There are consequences. And the story evolves a little bit every moment. So that's a whole bunch of fun, and we do one of those for each campaign once a year. Normally we would have a new one of those for Pathfinder Society at Gen Con. However, we will be launching 2nd edition at Gen Con, and those interactive events are really fun, but they are not a great place to learn a game.
Right.
Because they're the adrenaline junkie sort of gaming of just like, all right, we did this thing, we did that thing, we're going faster than all the other tables, let's go to the next thing.
Yeah.
As opposed to, how do I get my attack bonus again? Sort of questions. That's not a great time for an interactive. So what we decided to do,
that is fair,
much as when we launched Starfinder Society 2 years ago, is we're not doing an interactive special for 2nd edition to launch.
Okay.
Expect to see those in the future, but not for 2019.
Okay.
However, we are going to have a multi-table interactive special at PaizoCon. And instead of kicking off a new season, this is more about closing up the existing storyline.
That is awesome. Okay. Is there going to be one for Starfinder then at Gen Con?
There will be one at Origins.
That's right, Origins.
So basically something cool at each one of these conventions.
Okay, perfect. So if you are going to Origins or PaizoCon, what's the sign up? How do you get involved in the multi-table specials that are going on?
Ooh, let's see. So Origins is going to have its own ticket sales. That's going to be suspect is going to be through the convention itself.
Okay.
PaizoCon itself, this is something where I think Sarah Marie's going to have to help me out a little bit because I generally just show up and shout a bunch.
Right.
But basically, if you want to get involved in running games, then there is a blog thread and call for volunteers for that. Right. And there's a call for volunteers for all of these shows. Okay. Because we can always use more GMs for these. Give more people even better experiences.
Yeah.
But then if you want to sign up for PaizoCon, there's lottery games, which are the individual closed room sorts of events. But then we have sort of a broader sign up for the games that are happening in the ballroom. Okay. For which we usually have about 35 tables running content constantly.
Right. So then at PaizoCon we usually do the lotto system. Does that fall in? Do we know if that falls? If Sarah, if you're still in there,
I don't think that the lottery applies to the standard organized play games.
Oh, okay. Oh, Tanya coordinates all of that. Oh, okay. Perfect. Great. So, but rest assured, if you're going to Origins, if you're going to PaizoCon, we'll make sure that you know how to get involved in these things because it is in your best interest to give them a shot. Because just even from my watching standpoint, it was awesome. I had such a fun time. So yeah, and that so you kind of talked a little bit about it. We'll finish up the show with this with talking about. Second edition, Pathfinder Second Edition.
Sure.
Obviously, it's in our best interest to have an organized play, and it seems like it's going to launch at Gen Con. We'll be ready for that because, as far as I know, everything kicks off at Gen Con. That's usually how we do it. And so, what is the plan so far with that we can talk about? I'm not sure how planned out things are, and if your section is anything like the other departments here. Everybody's scrambling.
Yeah, although we've had a whole year to be working toward this, even more really. And so we've been using a lot of our organized play meetings to cover a lot of these topics and make final decisions. We've polled our players a whole bunch because we've been releasing a whole bunch of surveys, especially in like mid-2018, to say, okay, this is how it works in first edition. What would you like to see for second edition? What should change? What do you want to see more of? What do you want to see less of? And so we've been pulling a lot of that survey data to steer a bunch of our discussions and say, well, we always thought that X was true, but these 500 survey respondents actually think that Y is way more interesting. So, okay, well, maybe we're doing Y. And so we have a bunch of things that we've already figured out. We have a whole bunch of things that are in sort of their final discussion stages, and several things that we recognize are like the last things to kind of get fitted into place or that rely on earlier information that are still waiting for a lot more discussion. But a couple of things I can talk about right now. I can talk about what we're going to have at Gen Con.
Okay.
So first off, the tiers that we use in first edition are 5-level ranges. Because of how the math works in second edition, we're actually doing 4-level ranges, so like levels 1 through 4, levels 3 through 6. Same sort of system we see in Starfinder Society for second edition.
Okay.
So we're going to have 3 different tier 1-4 scenarios. One of those is going to be infinitely replayable. It's going to be a great introduction to what the Pathfinder Society is.
Okay.
We're also going to follow a little bit in the Starfinder model, in that we are releasing what's called a pre-generated character special. So when we did this for Starfinder Society, it was sort of a prologue to the ongoing storyline that said, all right, well, let's give you some pre-generated characters that are higher level than you'd start with normally, and play through this storyline to really set the stage for everything that's coming up now. And so we're going to have a 5th level pre-generated character special that helps to kick off the storyline for year 1. And then we're also going to have a standalone quest that is going to be great for demo purposes, but is also the start of a bit of a trend that we're doing for quests. Quests up until now have shown up in 2 different forms.
Okay.
One, they've been standalone little quests that quests is only about 40 to 60 minutes to play, that don't give any rewards. And so we tried a bunch of those back in like season 2 and 3. So way back when.
Yeah.
And they didn't catch on in part because you play your character, but you don't walk away with anything. And so one of the things that we wanted to make sure we did in the way that we structure the experience point system for second edition is to build in quests from the very beginning so that these do grant rewards. The other form that we've had are called quest packs, where you have like 4 to 6 quests in a pack, and they're kind of like a standalone scenario, but they're just little chapters. But we want to make sure that we're doing standalone quests, in part because we want to make sure that we have content that people can play when they have a shorter amount of time to play. So this could be a game store where you only have 2 hours to pull things together before you get kicked out.
Yeah.
It could be the sort of thing where a slot at a convention falls through, and you look at your watch and you say, well, hey, look on the plus side, we can get lunch. But before we do that, we could also still roll some dice and walk away with a Chronicle sheet, which is great. And on top of that, these are a great way to try new authors. So a scenario, 10,000, 12,000 words, that's a really big thing for a new author to try. But if we can give them something about a quarter the size, that's a great test for somebody who are like, we want to try you out, but if things don't work out, we don't want to be, struggling to really catch up. So these are great trials, and they might even play into an open call possibility, which has been the ongoing struggle for me, where it's like, well, if I had several more hours a day, open call. Although on that note, our latest quest pack, 10-16, What the Helms Hide, has a whole bunch of open call authors that we pulled out.
Really?
So we're really excited about that.
Nice. So organized play is all about the community, both outside and internally. Get the community involved using authors, giving them a chance to have a smaller project to work on first, and all that sort of thing. And show off those authors, a lot of whom already play Pathfinder Society and Starfinder Society. Absolutely. So when they show up at conventions, you can play an adventure with the author themselves. Yeah, that's really cool. That is really cool. All right, anything else that we want to cover before we wrap up here? There's one thing that I want to kind of get across for end of season 10. I mentioned that we have that finale scenario or interactive special. So earlier, actually I guess it was late 2018, I went on a different podcast and talked about how
we kind of were approaching this as a way of, okay, well, let's give every character that's out there some finality. So for some of them, it's be a big dang hero and, become a leader in the society. But for some, it's go out in a blaze of glory doing something big. Right. And so, we kind of used we chuckled a little bit about it because we had been using a stand-in title called The Grinder as sort of a throw your characters into the shredder.
Yeah, now that sounds familiar. The Grinder, I've heard that, yes.
One of the troubles, though, is that, for a lot of people, sacrificing a much beloved character is not really the way they wanted to go. Yeah. And we got a lot of commentary back that we heard loud and clear, which was maybe not quite that hard. So
yeah, that makes sense.
So by the time we were doing that interview, we had a general sense of how we wanted the special to go, but we hadn't yet outlined and assigned it. So in scenario or special 10-98, Siege of Gallows Spire by Brian Duckowitz, you're going to have several different characters that you're bringing. You're going to have your primary character. You're going to have what we call a reserve character, which is if something bad happens to your primary character, that's the person who can step in and tag in.
Oh, nice.
So that character has to be the same sub-tier that you're playing, level-wise, or lower. So you can't say, here's my 5th level PC. My 15th level behemoth is over here just being like, I dare you, kill my character. And then you're also going to have several aid characters. And these are ones who are also your Pathfinder Society characters, who you sort of have in the wings to run off and do these side quests that you find as you're going through the adventure. So it might be, okay, we need to clear out this dungeon, but we heard that there is a terrible demon portal off to the left. We can't go both ways. But if a bunch of us send some of our aid characters to deal with the portal, with possible risk of damage to those characters, then we can shut that down. And so we're going to be building that in. So instead of aid tokens necessarily, you're going to see a lot more uses for these aid characters as a way of getting your whole team together and sending them off to do this really big thing. Again, that's going to be Siege of Gallows Spire, and that's going to be at PaizoCon.
That's a solid idea. That is a really solid idea.
And the other thing that I'll say about that is partway through, there's going to be sort of a standard difficulty. I mean, this is going to be a little tougher than a normal scenario, just be aware. But our standard difficulty where you're going to do something really cool and really consequential. And then there's also going to be at that same fork in the road, what we're kind of calling our champion difficulty, which is the no, throw it at me, give me that hard mode level challenge. And that way, whether you want to have a really tough experience or not, you'll be able to play a really cool part of the story, each one of which is doing something a little different to contribute to that final success.
That sounds amazing. I love that. Let's do this. Let's wrap up the show.
Sounds
do
great.
a goodbye, and then we'll do some Q&A with the folks on Twitch.
Sounds great to me.
All right, sounds good. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. I hope you learned a lot. I know I did. Organized play is one of those things that I see a lot of, but I'm always working while it's going on, so I don't usually get to jump in. So it was really fun to hear some of the more nuts and bolts side of how this works, and I really do think that if you're going to be at a convention, and we're at a lot of the conventions as far as organized play goes, you should check it out. It's a lot of fun. If you're going to be at PaizoCon, if you're going to be at Origins, if you're going to be at Gen Con, please make some time to come and visit us and do some organized play, because it is really a blast. If you have a fun time, let us know in the comments down below, and I'll make sure to share the good ones with John, and we'll high five over the best stories. And in the meantime, for Paizo and for John Compton over here, and for me, I'm your old buddy Dan. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you again next week. Bye. Bye. All right.